Richard Edwards, and welcome to EVs and Beyond, filming from the stunningly beautiful Auckland Southern Motorway. Now, in the last week, we would have probably likely heard a few little announcements around things like the fee-bait scheme and the clean car discounts. So, as we speak, we're a couple of weeks away from seeing up to $8,500 on new EVs, and a little bit less on plug-in hybrids, and similar contributions scaled down for used EVs. Now, that's led to some pretty darn toxic things being said on the internet. Certainly a lot of the Karens and male versions of Karens have come out. Sorry, those nice people that are Karens. Online talking about how terrible EVs are and how their batteries don't last and they're all failing and it's just not going to work, and it's a bad thing for the country that we're going to have all these EVs. Well, you know me, I like to bust a good myth. So that's why we're driving this car today. Now, what is this car? It's not the latest and greatest from anyone, I guess, to be honest, but it is in a way pretty great. This is a Kia Niro EV, a 64 kilowatt model. It's been given to me by Kia because it's passed a particularly cool milestone. This is a 100,000k, to be specific, look down now, 104,420 kilometer Niro EV. So it's knocking on 3 years old. It's lived a life with a family, not particularly mollycoddled or anything like that. It does a fairly large commute in southern Auckland on a daily basis, and it's done some longer trips, things like bike racks and so forth on the roof. And it seems to be getting along pretty well. Now, they've given it to me for a couple of days to try it out and just see what having a higher mileage EV really means. Now, I've got to note that there are, let's be clear, there are some problems out there with battery degradation. We can't hide from those, but they do tend to be fixed to one model, and that is earlier Nissan Leafs. Later model stuff, and most of the brands seem to have started to get things right in regards to battery longevity. And even then, those Leafs that have degradation are at the cheaper end of the scale and at the older end of the scale. So, how much degradation has this Kia seen? Well, we've been given a report, and I'll put it on the screen now, that shows that over those 100,000 kilometres, there has been pretty much none. And that's pretty impressive, and not too far outside what we're hearing from a few other things about vehicles that have been on the road for a long time. Things like some of the Teslas overseas, and early reports on some of the early MG ZS EVs in the UK, and that's that modern batteries just are more resilient and holding on. So that's such good news, I think, for those people out there who are wanting to buy an EV and are worried about seeing all those often fake things they see on social media with car parks full of supposedly dead electric vehicles. The reality is, it's just not true. In the case of this Niro, that means that when we jumped in this car at Kia, when I actually jumped into it, it had 370 on it. By the time I'd driven 5 minutes down the road, this thing was showing nearly 440 kilometers of range. So I'm guessing the last person before me had driven it relatively quickly. And it feels like, well, virtually a new car. After those 100,000 Ks, the drivetrain still sounds as normal and quiet and smooth as it did, I'm sure, when it started. Performance is still excellent. It's all round just a good car that I would argue feels better at 100,000 kilometres than most petrol or diesel cars feel at 100,000 kilometres, and I'm used to buying cars that have got 100,000 kilometres on the clock. If we talk about the car in general, and this I think is more of a Kia thing than the EV specific thing, again, it's holding together really nicely. I've found like two things I could possibly pick in the whole car that are where the car is showing its age a little bit. One is the steering wheel, the leather's just getting a little bit shiny on the top, and the center console lid is just a little bit loose, but those are, well, certainly the center console lid's something that can be fixed easily, and they're things that are totally normal for a car of this age. So there's just very little wrong, or virtually nothing wrong with this vehicle after all those miles. The Niro design itself still standing up really well, still lots of space at the back. The Niro, as many people know, does have a smidge more space in it than a Kona EV that shares some of its mechanicals and some of its design. Compared to more recent Niro EVs I've driven, I do miss the big touch screen. You've only got a relatively small one here, but that's still totally functional. yeah, this car is absolutely none the worse for wear for 100,000 kilometers on the road, and still a totally viable option for any user, really, because it's still got that range there. And I suspect this car would still be worth a heck of a lot if it was to go up on sale today. I have not seen a Kia Niro EV go through auction yet out to the market. I don't think there's that many of them really out there to justify a actual statistical measure of what the market is like. But a few other EVs of this ilk that I've seen go through lately: Hyundai Ioniq, a Hyundai Kona EV with the smaller battery. Their prices held up exceptionally well, and I do know, seeing a couple of cars that got put through by a power company as a test case after a year on the road, not Kia Niro EVs, but of a similar ilk, showed them holding up 85+% of their value, which is just so good and better than what you will see on the petrol market. So look, if you're out there shopping and you are in the market for an EV, you can, I think, pretty much put battery degradation somewhat to the side. Let's not forget that all these new cars come with amazing warranties on the batteries these days anyway, and just concentrate on the fact that the EV has so many other advantages that aren't going to be put into comparison with that battery degradation, because really it's just not that big of an issue. So yeah, I'm going to go and hunt out some more cars like this with a bit higher mileage to drive. I'm actually picking up a car today with over 300,000 kilometers on it, but that'll be in one of our future videos. That's a bit of an interesting story to tell as well. But don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hang around for more great videos from EVs and beyond. And just ignore those silly Facebook posts.